Hi guys, this is Mattjestic Gaming, welcome, and today we have another special type of guide. Today we have a series of guide which I'll be studying. It's called the Mid-Game Survival Guide. In this first guide, we'll use one of the race and the synergies that's punished the most as our main guest over here as to demonstrate how can we survive in the mid-game. And this series will be focused on spending, saving, winning, losing streak, and exactly how do we survive in the mid-game. By surviving the mid-game, what I meant is by coming top 4 in the game. And by coming top 4 in the game, most of us are okay. Because when you can get top 4, most likely you can get top 3, and afterwards we work towards second and first. So let's get started. I have a few replays ready for us and a few tier lists I made earlier as a good example and a good demonstration. What do I mean by surviving in the mid-game? What I meant is after round 21 and usually after round 16, people tend to start spending the gold they have. And what does that do? It will start to punish those players that doesn't have enough solid unit synergy or solid lineup. They will start to lose health heavily. They will start to go from here or maybe even here. They start to lose health rapidly to 30, 20% and eventually dies. And for us, we really want to be aware of that. And yes, I do apologize for this particular replay because it does have the chat box next to the side. We don't have the chat box going, but this was in the replay. So currently, Goblins are one of the races, one of the classes that gets punished so heavily in the mid game. There's two reasons for that. One logical reason is that if you can find a 2-star Clockwork, 2-star Tinker, 2-star Bounty Hunter at level 4 or 5, what makes us think they're still relevant or they're still strong enough at round 20? There's no reason why they should be that strong at round 20. Otherwise, this unit is unbalanced. So what that means is we really do need to find transitional units. And although we're talking about Goblins in this particular guide, I'll be generally touching on most of the transitional units for all kinds of builds. So they are the generic transitional units that will help us along the way. So what's going to happen is, you already seen that I bought a Beastmaster in this particular replay. I'm looking to buy this Shadow Thing as well if I win this round, which I think I'll win with a 2-star Tinker, and we'll be buying the Shadow Thing. And why is that I'm buying those units? Let me show you the tier list behind that. Over here, we have a particular tier list I made, which is by rounds. Around round 11 to 20, we really want some nice units. And those are some of the units we're really looking at to start to merge or start to make them into 2-stars. Not necessarily the purple units, but the 2 cost and the 3 cost, we definitely want them as 2-stars as early as we can. If you get a 2-star purple unit, that's excellent. So looking over here, I found the Beastmaster, one of my top rated early game units. I also found the Shadow Thing. Shadow Thing is kind of iffy. He can be up there and he can be here. It just depends on how quickly you can get him to 2-star. Shadow Thing is definitely on the top of the tier list when he's 2-star, but as 1-star he's lower. And I put Shadow Thing here simply because he's so contested that people tend to buy so many Shadow Things. Yes, the same thing happens for Beastmaster, but as a 2-cost unit, it's so much easier to find him as a 3-cost Shadow Thing. I'm sorry I keep mixing the cost and the stars, guys. Bear with me. So the second thing I want to show you guys is round 21 to 30. Again, we're planning for the mid-game because we know our class is weak in the mid-game. We want to plan for the mid-game now. See the swap over between Shadow Thing and the Beastmaster? Round 21 to 30, the Shadow Thing will take the lead because most Shadow Things are 2-star now. And again, the heavy favors for me are the AoE units or the particular unit that brings so much value to our lineup, because we know we're weak in the mid-game if we don't transition. Some of those transitional units are here: Terrorblade, Icon, Queen of Pain, Beastmaster, Shadow Thing, other things like Razor or other purple units would definitely want them. Sometimes a 1-star Conquer can still be very relevant around round 21. Again, I'm going to show you guys under the Reinforce. This is a comparison of the 2-cost units, and the other one is a comparison of the 3-cost unit. I know the display of the logo pictures are different simply because when making this guide, it was not updated for the new units. So what I want to highlight is Beastmaster, Queen of Pain, Timber not so much, and Juggernaut not that much, simply because they do need to fit in a lineup like Orc Warriors and the Beast. Oh, sorry, and the Goblins. I have no idea why I said Beast. Well, Beastmaster and Queen of Pain are so versatile. You can say that, hey, why is Beastmaster up there? Because his synergy with Disruptor. Usually when you run 2 Orcs, I'm thinking about late game here. I usually run Beastmaster and Disruptor. Juggernaut is great, but he's slow with dealing damage when he casts. Over here, this is a 3 cost comparison. We have Razor on top, Lycan, Sand King, Shadow Fiend, and Terrorblade. The things I want to highlight are 3 units here. We have Razor, Shadow Fiend, and Terrorblade being my top tier 3 cost units. So by showing you guys those top units, those are the units we actually start to look in the early game. We start to look for those units in the early mid game so we can transition into them as a 2-star unit that will help us have a stronger mid game as any weak mid game lineup. So let's go back to this replay. Let's see what happens now. Yes, we do have a Shadow Fiend in the savings bag or in the loot box. Right now we're about to purchase the Shadow Fiend when we win this round. And yes, we won the round. I'm fast forwarding a little bit. We won round without the Shadow Fiend. And some things you guys have seen that in many of my replays is I tend to adjust my lineup or my formation depending on particular unit. Over here, another little highlight is I adjusted this formation for the Shadow Fiend. You might ask, hey, won't this Tinker not take enough damage to cast because those two will be running forward? Yes, that will happen. But when those two dies, Tinker will take damage before the Shadow Fiend, and that's what I want. I'm centering my lineup for the Shadow Fiend. So let's have a look. Bounty Hunter might die, and Clockwork might die. And here they didn't even die, so even better, right? But if they do die, see the Tinker still got his things off because he was positioned right in the front diagonal position to protect a ranged unit behind. Usually that's a Shadow Fiend or 2-star Enchantress. Let's go again. So let's see what we wrote here. Wrote a Shadow Fiend. We do want the Razor, keep in mind that we need to be aware to not burden ourselves too much with the early game. Here, I wrote once. Let me show you why did I wrote here. So I wrote once particular here because I have 1 pair, 2 pair, and I was hoping for anything that can give me a pair. So yes, 2 pair is pretty low, but I'm rolling inconsistent of my early game rerolling strategies because I have decided to go into Goblins for this particular game, and going to Goblins for this particular game means I want to roll early for my Goblins. If I roll early for the Goblins, I have a great chance of finding most of the Goblins at level 4. I do not want to level up because that's actually costly for me. And yes, we rolled, we found the Clockwork. I instantly sell the Razor because I know what my priorities are. Yes, I did say Razor is great, Razor is the best 3-star and everything, but we already have 2 Shadow Fiend. If I have a Razor sitting in my hand, what's that gonna happen is Razor is gonna be a dead weight to us. We have to keep in mind, do not take dead weight units in the too early game unless you already have 2 of them. So if I had 2 Razor here and 1 Shadow Fiend, what I'll do is I'll sell the Shadow Fiend so I can have my Clockwork. This is because we're still in the early game. If you think too much about the late game, you never get to the late game nicely if you don't win the early game. Notice how this is the last line of defense for the Shadow Fiend, which still works very fine. Let's go forward a bit. Again, I did the rerolling again. Let me show you what happened. So we started the round by finding those units. The round's gonna start. We start the round by finding those units. And here, we're gonna buy all the 1 cost to increase the chance of finding a 1 cost, then we're gonna roll. We plan to sell Enchantress and draw if we find something great. And we found 2 great things. Even better, we sell the Lycan. Again, Lycan is great for me. I kept him because I want to use him. But the moment I have an upgrade for my early game, I will strip over. Here, the reason is, you might ask me, why don't you lock to get most of the units? I can lock, but again, I value myself being on level 4 so much. Each roll on level 4 is not just 2 gold for me, it's an irreversible roll for the Goblins. This is some of the reasons most of me and my viewers do get 3-star Goblins around 16 and around 20, because we tend to roll early and we tend to keep all the Goblins. And this is where we really build up the Goblins. Notice how I have 5 Tinkers already. For a particular Goblin lineup, this is not bad. I won't go through with all the early game with you guys because this is the mid game, and this is a mid game guide. I just want to show you guys, yes, see I'm saving a particular lamp. I'm saving Shadow Thing, Queen of Pain not so, but the Beastmaster as well. I'm going to skip a little forward. So the highlight is I have my mindset for the mid game right at the start. This is allowing me to transition, but I don't get so greedy and so caught up with my mindset. So I have, you know, a Razor here, a Shadow Thing there. I don't have that many. I set my eye on a few particular ones and I stay with those pairs. If I had the Razors, I'll just keep the Razors. But of course, a Razor and a Shadow Thing is not bad as well. Notice how I wrote again over here. This is a unique one because I want any form of upgrade so that my lineup is strong enough to keep my win streak. Notice how we've been getting win streak until now, so it was worth it, the investment to keep the win streak. For me particularly. Here we found a Beastmaster. Remember the Beastmaster was a top tier unit? We're going to take the Beastmaster. We're going to start praying we can find something else. We found a Tinker and it's not bad. So notice how again, I'm only rolling because I have, let's see how many pairs I have. Beastmaster pair, Tinker pair, Bounty Hunter pair, Lone Druid is a pair as well. Because 12 Lone Druid makes a 2-star. We had plenty of pairs. So again, I'm going to show you, see, we found a Beastmaster because I prepared for the Beastmaster, I think around 3 in the game. We did get lucky with the Beastmaster, yes, but we did prepare for this Beastmaster at round 3. We only found him at round 14. So I'm going to end this particular replay by showing you guys what happened in the end game. So because we build into the mid game, we're going to transition pretty strongly still in the mid game with so good of economy. We found an Enigma. And let's have a look here. So over here, I think this particular round, yeah, we found our 3-star Tinker. We're on our way to find a 3-star Bounty Hunter, 3-star Clockwork, because we planned to roll the Goblins early. This gives us another boost as a Goblin. You really do want to find your 3-star Goblins around round 16 to round 30, between that round, because they will be so nice if they're 3-star. So much health to fight against mages, and so tanky for most other units. And yes, we do quite well, and although this is a bishop game, which was a bishop lobby, this is the introduction game. The next 2 replays will be featured with higher and higher rank games. So let's go to the next replay. Here we have the second replay. As you can see, in this particular replay, our rank has risen much higher. So what I want to show you guys is in all level of games, we played in a bishop lobby. This is a rook lobby. The next one will actually be a queen one. So in all level of games, this method does work. And to just reinforce on the particular unit selection, over here we have the good units for what I'm looking at is the S tier and A tier, by the way. We have the good units over here, and you can see all those units. I don't plan to keep all the good ones. If I can find 1 or 2 in my top S tier, I'm okay. I don't need each one of them. If I find Beastmaster and the Terrorblade, I'm happy. I don't need the rest. But if I find a Queen of Pain and the Timbersaw, I'm okay as well. Maybe a Razor. So notice how I'm not here to collect all the Pokemons, but I'm here to collect a few specific ones so we can, combat our situations. And again here, keep in mind the really good units are Shadow Thing and Razor because they're 3-star and they do great AoE. Let's go back to the replay. So to really reinforce the fact, here unfortunately we can't buy the Dragon on the Beastmaster. I thought about locking it, but it was just a bit too much because we want to test Goblins in this particular replay. And yeah, we got a little jackpot. I also got a nice subscriber back then. Thank you, Hobby Buddy. So what I want to reinforce is in each of those Goblin future games, we are setting our mind for the mid game very early, but we're not letting this disable our early game. We know the early game is still very important up to round 15. We know we want win streaks. We don't want the mid game to affect our early game rolling. We don't want the mid game to affect our early game saving or strategies. We still fight the early game with the early game in mind, but we plan for the mid game. So the spare gold goes into collecting units instead of making up for some spare gold. What that means is if I have open slots, I tend to fill up my saving spots instead of having that extra gold. That will go a long way actually. Here, as you can see, we have some early goblins, and we're going to have some early goblin rolling strategies as well, same as before. Here we actually, I want to show you guys this one. Here, we found the timber saw. Let's see what happens. Most of us would stop here, right? But I rolled again, simply because I know I'm going to play goblins. I know I want units that are goblins, and I know this is the highest level for me to find goblins. Yes, we got the jackpot, we found the 2-star timber saw, but I also found the Beastmaster. I was likely to find Tinkers, Bounty Hunter, and Clockwork. So many goblins in the early game, that's why we will reroll. And yes, this plan does fail 1/3 of the time, and other times you either high roll like this one, or you either just roll average. Average roll is not bad for us. It's only the downside when you low roll with 1/3 of the time, you really have to know what to do. And just a little tip on that, if you do low roll, you want to transition out of goblins into something that fights well for the mid game. For example, dragons, mages, maybe trolls, maybe knights, or maybe even orcs. We're not going to touch on this too much. All we want to do is I want to show you guys the unit choice. The goblins and the no-brainers, right? I'm going to pick goblins. See, I picked another Beastmaster. I picked this round, we found 2 Terrorblade. Again, remember Terrorblade was on the top of my list. This time, instead of picking a Shadow Fiend, Terrorblade appeared. You know, I'm instantly happy. Notice I'm not picking the CK. And even if I have 2 CK, I'll still be reluctant to pick him because CK is a little bait. CK after round 20 is pretty useless in most cases. And CK also takes up the demon position. You do want 1 demon in your rounds. Notice last game I have a Shadow Fiend. This game I'm planning to go with the Terrorblade. And next game, let's see what demon we go with next game. Because demon is such a good transition. Yes, we bought an anti-mage with spare gold. We're just looking for some units. And nothing changes. I could have leveled up here, but I'm gonna sit because I found it's the timber. The highlight for the mid game is actually in the early game, funny enough, because if you don't plan for the mid game, when you get to the mid game, you can't do much. Yes, you can spend your savings, start rolling, and you might get lucky. But if you plan for it like this, you might get units before the late game comes, or before the mid game comes. Notice how again we're getting units and we level up perfectly, so you know we got an extra spot. Yes, we're getting lucky with goblins, but it is our purposely chose to do this because we did not level up our builder at once. If we leveled up builder to 6 or 7 or even to 5 earlier, we might not get as many goblins. And if you want more of that, I'll attach my goblin guide in the description below. Why did we do that? And it's the secret of good RNG for goblins. Because we tend to win the early game with goblins, but if we settle the mid game as well, we're pretty settled. Nothing special. We're gonna fight some golems. Again, I want to show you guys some of the decisions here. We did get lucky with the timber, I know. And the decision here is to not too focus on getting my units to 3-star, but rather I want my 2 stars to be on the table. Notice how I even prefer anti-mage instead of the bounty, simply because anti-mage counters demons. We know there are so many demon players. And we leveled up here to protect the win streak. So notice there are 3 things. One thing is win streak, one thing is the unit rate selection. If I want goblins, I want to stay low. But if I want to protect win streak, I have to level. The balance is if I have a 2-star and if I have a 2-star and I really want to protect my win streak, I will level. Because I favor win streak a little more than my units, because I know it's just really random. Sometimes you just get lucky randomly, but sometimes you never find it even if you stay low. So win streak is a guarantee. And yes, we did find the Beastmaster, not bad, and we also found the Tinker. Notice how our aim to stay low really paid off, and this was explained in details in most of my goblin guides, is that you stay low, you get your 2 stars, and then you level to 6 or 7, and you just watch you win the early game. But the downside is you might lose the mid game if you don't find your 3 stars, like 3-star Clockwork, 3-star Timber, which are quite hard. So that's why we have units like Beastmaster and Terrorblade over here on this game to help us transition. And again, notice I'm not picking up more demons, I'm not picking up more razors. Haven't found any razor. I'm not picking up any like other great units because I only want 2 or 3 of those transitional units because I can't fit all of them on the table. Terrorblade, because we've been sitting on the Terrorblade for so long, why not a Terrorblade? Yes, we've got a Terrorblade, very nice, right? And this is the time I can forgo the Goblin buff, which it's a personal preference. Yeah, so what's gonna happen is last game we had a Shadowfin carry, this time we have a Terrorblade carry. And he's gonna carry us pretty far with this game. At this Terrorblade, Beastmaster, and very soon we have some new additional units which actually helps us carry. So I'm gonna skip a little bit. We're still winning because of this Terrorblade which we planned at the very start of the game. So over here we found a Lone Druid, we're gonna keep the Lone Druid because we think the summoning is gonna help, which they did not help by the way. We lost this one because we got the Lone Druid instead of the Tinker. So sad. But notice how close I am to all my units, guys. This is that we built a foundation of Goblins or particular units so early that we're actually very close to 3-star. This is one of the highlights for this particular replay, is that if you want to play Goblins, if you want to survive the mid game, you can transition or you can just simply find your 3-stars. If you find your 3-stars, hey, not only you save so much space on the table, you have a strong unit, and for those that didn't know, the moment you have a 3-star unit on the table, you stop getting that particular piece. That means you got a higher chance of finding your other 3-stars. What does that mean? If I have a 3-star Tinker now, it means I greatly increase the chance of me finding other 3-stars. So which is great, because we keep finding 3-stars. This is pretty awkward, I know. What's gonna happen is I'm gonna do some desperate roasts right now. I was like, thank you Clock, thank you for coming. Because I was getting so desperate with way too many things. This is what you don't want to do though. I don't recommend doing that too much. I think locking will be the safer choice because I have pretty good economy. And notice how I found my clock at around 20, and this is excellent. Give us a little boost and keeps protecting our health. And we do have more transitional units like Lone Druid and Terrorblade. Notice how I'm not buying the Sand King, although he's pretty highly rated and he's a beast, because I don't want too many of those traditional units. And Sand King is not that great unless you run some beast and some synergies. Notice I ignore the Razor as well, because simply put it, I can't put a Razor that's 2-star down, because I already have 3 of the transitional units, right? So keep in mind, we don't want to take too many of the good things when we think about transitioning from the mid game, because if you take too many, all of a sudden they become a burden to you. So I'm gonna go through this game quite quickly first as well. We did find the 3-star Tinker. Again, this was because we did plan for the Tinker. So I'm gonna go through this game quite quickly first. I'm gonna show you we do have a dominating mid game as well because I plan to transition. I find often when I don't plan to transition or when I don't transition into a good unit, that's when we fail in the mid game. Notice how again I'm transitioning into the disruptors. I'm denying the trolls, by the way. I don't plan to go into the trolls. So yeah, I'm planning to go into Razor. I'm transitioning into the late game. So I'm gonna do so, because Dusa is a really good late game transition. Here it is when we transition for the late game. Notice I'm getting into the late game quicker than anybody else because of my winning streaks. And I think little habits like those, notice how I bought the Death Prophet before I start rolling, will increase my chance of finding a techie, so I tied. Little habits of those do go a long way, but really keep in mind they're not that necessary because the rate are minimal. It's a good habit. At the same time, you don't want to push it because you might run out of time and make a mistake, then that's more critical. This will be the end of this replay. We'll go to the next one. Hey guys, this is our last replay. In this particular replay, we're playing a high rook game with queen and count, and it's one king and everyone's high rook. So this is pretty much what happens when you don't find a queen lobby, because they take half hour to an hour to find, and that's when you just play a high rook game with a queen and count. You're still getting great MMR if you come top 3, and yeah, it's really nice. So again, the reinforcement on this particular game is to focus how we survive for the mid game. The special guests, the Goblins this time. Next time we'll focus on something like Orc Warriors, maybe Elves, or maybe something people want to have a look. The special guest to survive for the mid game over here is Goblins. Notice how I always lock for 2 bounty and 2 clockwork at the start of the game. because I feel having them as a 2-star is so important. A few more units, and we did find our first Queen of Pain, by the way, guys. Remember, I did mention that we want to transition into the mid game. Queen of Pain is my transitional unit. Let me just have a look at this one over here for you guys. I'm sure some of you will be like, I know those. Queen of Pain. Once I have a Queen of Pain, if I have a Timber, I just want one more. I don't need all of them. Once I have Queen of Pain, I don't need Terrorblade. I can have Beastmaster or I can have a Razor. See, I'm quite flexible. I know the Queen of Pain is going to fall down once we go to higher level, but before that, she is so much easier to find because she's 2-star. That's why she's on top. So this complex tier list not only shows why she's on top, but also we consider the rate of finding her at this time. We put Shadow Fiend here because he's so much harder to find as a 2-star. So there's an innate positioning with the units. I consider that and I explained a bit of that in this tier list. What I'll do is I'll attach this tier list in the description below. And again, Queen of Pain is pretty highly rated, and yeah, this is a 3 cost, so maybe we want to finance a 3 cost, maybe a Razor. Oh, let's see how we go. So previously I have been giving guides or giving tips, but I haven't really reinforced it with a particular guide or a tier list. What I'm trying to do is this time I want to use something that I build, that I think is useful, that I use. I want to share with you guys, and this way we can be having a more holistic picture. It's easier for me to explain, and if you guys want more details, there's always that video that guys can see why I make those decisions. Because this often happens when I'm playing on Twitch as well. People do ask me questions, I refer them to a video. Not that I'll try to sell the video, but I think the video explains more than what I can do at this stage. Notice how I'm already deciding to stick with the Queen of Pain. I might even give her all those items. I'm still considering that. This is round 4. And any unit with a stop shield that regenerates health like Goblins, just so dreamy. I think Stock Shield is actually pretty broken before round 10. Let's have a quick look. Let's see if this clock takes any damage. He does, simply because he doesn't have Nanobot. If he had Nanobot, he will be like this Tinker. A 2-star X hitting the Tinker is not even losing HP. So yes, we did lose this one, simply because the Tinker got the buff. Nothing special here. Again, I'll be rolling, same as my early game rolling. I want to highlight this to you guys, the choice of picking the units. See, what's happening now is yes, that's right. Let me show you again. So I have the Queen of Pain already. I know that she's ranked higher than Shadow Fiend for me, particularly because she's easy to find as a 2-star. What I didn't anticipate is I find the Shadow Fiend when we reroll. And another reason I'm not keeping Shadow Fiend but Queen of Pain is that she costs 2 gold. In the early game, gold matters so much. Although he's great for the mid game, but by costing 3 gold, that means he's gonna eat away at least 6 gold of my gold, sitting there and not doing anything unless it gets to 3, unless we get one more Shadow Fiend, unless it gets to 2-star. The Queen of Pain only eats 4 of my gold when she sits there. But you know, just RNG, it happens. We find the Shadow Fiend when reroll. And trust me, I was more happy to see its bounty. And yeah, just a highlight for this particular round. Notice my Queen of Pain positioning. This is the offensive positioning. We're positioned here not because we think we're stronger. We're pretty strong with the Bounty Hunter. We're positioned here so that the Queen of Pain can lay all her magic into the frontliners like this. Otherwise, she'd be like Bounty, but because she's ranged, she will jump to a corner and she will just burst 1 unit down with a spell. Here, she can burst at least 3 off. So that was key. So we're positioning our units because we want to build around our crucial unit. Here is Queen of Pain. I did buy the Shadow Fiend. We found the Queen of Pain, by the way. Let me show you. Yeah, there you go. Queen of Pain and the Timber. Perfect. And let's see what happens. I saw the Shadow Fiend. So remember, this is very reminiscent of what happened before. Before I sold the Razor and the Lycan because I had 2 Shadow Fiends. Here I sold Shadow Fin because I already have 2 queen. I'm planning to buy this once. I don't want to spend. I don't want to sell the Enchantress. I'm just waiting for a win, which is really greedy, I know. But if I lose, I'll sell the Enchantress. Again, I'm not leveling here. I favor the rates. Notice how here I put my mouse on the rates. This is the good old rates before they changed it. So I put my mouse there to show that I want the rates. See, my Queen of Pain and his Queen of Pain is very well positioned. But it seems like Bounty Hunter is so much stronger. I gave him all the good items. He's gonna solo them. Yeah, he did well. And I did buy the bounty with the spare gold we got. I found a Tinker, nothing special. Oh yeah, something special did happen. Let me show you guys. So we're starting low. Notice how at level 4 and level 5 there is the highest rate to find 2-star units. So I really don't want to go to level 6 until I find my Queen of Pain. I only have 2 gold here, but I have 2 Enchantress sitting there. That means if I rolled, if I find a Queen, I can sell the Enchantress. I know I could have made a spare gold with the train, but I can't juggle that much because we don't have a spare gold to buy the train while we keep the Enchantress. Because that means I have to sell Goblins. But notice I rolled my Queen of Pain. She was my ideal demon. I sold my Shadow Fin because I anticipated her instead of Shadow Fin. Simply because Shadow Fin was so much harder to find. So she rates highly than Shadow Fin before round 20, I feel. Just by her ease of finding. And I don't get locked in having too many good units in early. I stick with my Beastmaster, maybe a Terrorblade, maybe a Queen, maybe a Shadow Fin. Never too much. So the key to win again, we leveled up here because I already found my Queen. I don't need to stay on level 4 or level 5 for too long. So next level, what's going to happen is we're going to be 4/8. We level up again. We keep the win streak. We get higher. And remember last time we talked about the branching. I mentioned this in my tier list for the mid game and the late game. It's get as much branching as you can. I was flashing over here to show chat. It's like, check out my branching, guys. Then check out my win streak. We branched into assassins. Because again, we anticipated the branching. I was looking for a good assassin. And Phantom is not the best, but you know, it's a top assassin. I would actually prefer a Sand King or a Templar though, but we take what we get. It's got tossed back. And let's have a look at this fight. Yeah, the Queen is the key here. She actually does true damage to the Knights no matter how much armor they have. That's why I really do prefer having a Demon as my mid-game transition. Whether it's a Shadow Fin, Terrorblade, or Queen of Pain. Don't get baited by the CK though. Doom is okay, but he doesn't do AoE, but CK is a bait. Don't get baited, guys. Again, let me show you the thing over here. I level up the game. So in my early game, I already planned for the mid game. I already have my Queen and my Timber. Not 2-star though, but I leveled up here to protect the win streak. No longer do I need to worry about my strength because I know I'm stronger with the Queen and I know now I need the win streak. So in the early game, you still play for the early game. You don't just play everything for the mid game because that's when you lose the early game. We win the early game, we win the mid game, and we take the late game. See how we go. So yeah, I'm showing everyone the rates, and we're going to be winning for a few rounds. Notice I mentioned Lycan was my top units, so I'm keeping Lycan. I'm keeping a random Tusk because I think the Tusk was better than a 1-star Clockwork if he's 2-star, but he never made it. He never made it to us. So yeah, we found a Timber, very nice. And what I'll do is, I found another Queen. See, this is a preference. Not only we have the assassins on the board, but because we're stacking all the AoEs here. Let's see what happens. The big Queen and the small Queen, they're gonna AoE. That's 200, 300, and 200. And what that does is, that 700 AoE, guys, is no joke. Most units only have 1000 health. And I'm trying to find somebody. So those units are tanky. They're armored, they're tanky. We charge them up, they charge us up, and everything disappears. Oh, most of them do, right? So if we didn't AoE properly there, we might have lost harder, we might not be able to win. And we just won just exactly because of the unit position, unit choice, and the decisions we had. Yes, I'm touching a bit on the early game and positioning as well. I think it will help us out. Yeah, we found the task, but keep in mind, guys, we're gonna buy him. Let's see what happens. We take him because I felt we have enough AoE. He's just gonna be here for like 2 or 3 rounds before we, retire him. But he's a 2-star. If he's a 2-star, he can tank up for the Queen. And if anyone takes that for the queen, she melts everything. Perfectly positioned, boom, and everything disappears. 6-second cooldown with 300 damage is very strong. I know, I really like my demons, except, see, I'm not touching the Terror Blade anymore, because we already have Queen of Pain. Let's skip forward a little bit just to show you guys that we have transitioned into the mid game already before most play, or before we noticed we have already played our plan for the mid game, and instantly the task retires. He did well, but the clock is so much better. And notice we put the weaker unit in the middle while the tankier ones on the outside. And I'm showing chat as well that with the Merc region, that's why they're better than the task. Nothing so special, but I think it's in the details that we prepare for the mid game that really allows us to power through the early game into the mid game. I'm gonna skip a little bit. So nothing special, we just found another bounty hunter. And yeah, so notice how we started saving. We already got a decent economy, and now we're actually looking for Queen of Pain. We're looking for a replacement for Phantom. We did looking for Queen of Pain because we know if we stack AoE, it's so much better. And yeah, and notice how here for the mid game now, this is round 21. I put down a 1-star Conquer because I feel Conquer with a bolt is incredibly strong. Let's see what happens. So also, I think one of my chat guys was asking where do we see what damage a unit does. So just a general guide, guys. Most unit does magic damage. Only unit that does physical damage currently, I think, is the Beastmaster and the Techies. Their spells does physical damage. Most of our other units does magical damage or pure damage, which is pretty much the same. Magical is same as pure damage because most units have 0 magic armor to start with. So if you look on the skill description, let me see if I can find one first, but maybe later in your game. If you look on the skill description, right after the text there's a line says what it does. Physical, magical, or pure. Pure goes through all the spell resistance that is. And yes, this lineup was so aggressive, we did find our second queen, we're still nuking down everything. And what I want to highlight is, before we finish this part of the replay, is that yes, sometimes you do plan for the mid game before the mid game comes, and we're planning for the late game before the late game comes. We found a bounty, very soon we're going to find a Queen of Pain, and that allows us to have a more solid footing in the late game. And there you go, we found a Queen of Pain and a Dusa and a Enigma. I'm going to stop the replay probably over here, and the highlight again for this particular replay is not the Goblins. The Goblins is special guest. I'm using Goblins as a good example, but the real highlight is that how we can compare or prepare for the late game or for the mid game in the early game. But you don't want to go over the board with preparation. If you go over the board, you will actually suffer for your early game. So that's the highlight. Now let's do a quick conclusion for this particular guide. We prepare for round 11 and 20 with the top units, particularly over here. Unless you run a particular build, then of course you want the druids if you're going for beasts or druids or elves. If you're going for knights, of course you take those. But mostly we look at the units over here because they're so generic. This particular guide was made also considering how easy it is to get those units and how viable they are as a 1-star when it's hard to get them as 2-star. Over here on this particular guide, you want to prepare for those units probably around round 10 onwards. And round 10 onwards, if you do find a 2-star of those units, you do pretty well. And you can probably do pretty well until round 26, or depends how fast things goes. So the key particular is to play your early game as you should. Try to win the early game. If you don't, try to get a losing streak in the early game. But always prepare for the mid game. Once you prepare your transition, you find it much easier, and RNG does walk your way most of the time if you have a few of those pairs. I recommend no more than 5 pairs, and when you have 5 pairs, that's the time you should roll. When you have less than 3 pairs, then you should only roll if you want to protect your winning streak. On more of that, definitely check out my win streak and lose streak guide. So this will be it for this particular series, how to survive in the mid game. There will be more on this as the next guide comes. Thank you so much guys for watching. Hopefully you found something helpful here, and thank you again guys for coming over on Twitch to say hi, to support me on Twitch, and thank you for liking, subscribing on YouTube. Thank you so much guys, really appreciate everything. I'm so motivated, and hopefully I can bring better content for you guys in the future days. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time.